Hey party people, it's Shana coming to you live with weird messy hair. It's Monday, the last Monday of January. Hard to believe that we are already 1 month into 2024. So much lies ahead, and this is going to be perhaps my last free live Q&A. So I hope you guys have your burning questions ready for me. Today I am answering any questions you've got. So whether it's about a pose or potentially about yoga philosophy, I'll do my best I can with that. And what are your burning questions and what can I do for you today? I see the first comment today is from Energetic Ventures. Nice pose. I guess that is referring to my handstand, but you have to earn it. Interesting comment, and I have to say that I agree. I personally have earned it, and I'm here to help anybody who wants to earn their poses as well. As many of you probably know, I have my Handstand Breakthrough Revolution. This is specifically an 8-week course dedicated to getting you into your handstands and also into your personal empowerment, right? So we've got skill set, we've got mindset, and Q&A today actually isn't here for me to plug my handstand program, but until you guys ask questions, I'm going to plug. Again, Energetic Ventures saying nice pose, but you have to earn it. And how do we earn it? Well, we earn our handstands, we earn all of our poses, honestly, by hard work and dedication. That should not come as news to you. I have, in fact, 3 testimonials here on YouTube. And all 3 of these women are people who really committed themselves to their goals. Now, keep in mind, guys, that your yoga goals and your life goals are more closely intertwined than you might think, right? Everybody's heard what we do on the mat is a reflection of what we do off the mat, but keep in mind that it goes both ways. The way that we behave off the mat is also highly indicative of how we behave on the mat. So that means if I get easily frustrated because things just aren't going my way, such as, oh, I'm just not a handstander, or oh, I just don't have the core strength, and we get frustrated and we become our own worst enemy, there's a good chance that you've got similar self-defeating attitudes in your life, okay? Likewise, if I approach some of the harder poses in yoga with fear, and I do not go all in on my poses because they're too scary. I'm afraid I'm gonna hurt myself. I'm afraid I'm gonna fail. That's a whole nother issue, by the way. Then the chances are that you are also going through life with these same kinds of feelings. So if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat. Paikis, I see you're writing something, but I'm not sure what that means. So, okay. Well, if there's no questions, then I will go ahead and I will talk about some topics, and maybe some questions will come up based on the topics that I'm talking about. Please feel free to put them in the chat at any time. Okay, so I didn't necessarily show up today to do a monologue, although you know me, the yada is pretty strong on this one, as I've been told. So if instead of just listening to me, you would rather ask a question and get it answered, please put your questions in the chat. Okay, so today, while I wait, I'm going to talk about a question that comes up, excuse me, very often, and particularly for handstands. Handstands, as you might know, are sort of my thing. So the thing that people ask me all the time is, should I be practicing on both sides? Now, of course, handstand is a symmetrical pose, right? So if, for example, you're practicing any sort of press, okay, I say any sort of press because Instagram talks about this thing called puppy press. I'm not like into that, so I'm not even going to count that among presses. For me, presses are like standing split press, that's the easiest one, a tuck press, a pike press, a straddle press. Okay, so all of those are purely symmetrical handstands. There is no right and left. So when I say, should you be practicing handstands on both sides, what does that mean? It means, should you be practicing with first your right leg in the air and then your left leg in the air? Now, here's what's interesting. My answer for the both sides question is different for inversions than it is for non-inversions. Okay? Why? Because inversions require a whole new set of skills, right? Mostly based on proprioception. What proprioception? Proprioception is understanding where your body is in space. Very simple, right? It's our vestibular system that says, like, when I go upside down, in my head, I can sort of picture where my leg is. Okay, because if you can't picture where your leg is, where your hips are, shoulders, etc., you're not going to be able to balance. Now, when you're standing upright, obviously you know where all your pieces are. Among other things, I can always just look down and be like, oh, there's my hand. But when I'm in handstands, I do, or any other inversion, headstand, pincha mayurasana, I don't have that luxury. Right? I can't just be looking around and being like, oh, is my foot up there? And even if I did have the ability to look up in the air while in a handstand or inversion, I still have to understand proprioceptively where it is. Now, once again, for those of you who are just logging on, please put your questions in the comments and I will answer your questions directly. But until I have questions, I just need to talk and wait for the questions. And so, going back to the concept of, should you be practicing both sides equally when you're practicing inversions? Now, my answer is probably going to be different from most teachers. And my answer is, I think if you want to master inversions and you are not consistently balancing at least 3 seconds. Now, when I say at least, I don't mean 3 seconds sometimes or 3-ish seconds, because sometimes we do like a second and think it's 3 seconds. Believe me, when you're practicing something hard, a second can feel like forever. So unless you're 3 consistent seconds in your balance, my personal recommendation is that you stick with just the one side entry to start. Okay, so until you master, like for me, right leg in the air is my dominant side for handstands, okay? So for years, maybe a year, I really only kicked up on my right side. Why? Because my body was still figuring out the pose. My mind was still figuring out, again, proprioceptively, where is everything in space? How do I make this pose work out? Now, when you're going upside down, guys, your right side and your left side, it could feel like literally somebody else's leg is kicking up when you try the second leg. I mean, it could be that different. We think we're such symmetrical beings. We're not as symmetrical as we think. I mean, like just looking at myself right now, I can see like I have one small like eye and one big eye. I know when I smile, actually it's not doing it right now. A lot of times like my mouth sort of goes like this way and it's not as even as I think. It's the same with our bodies, right? So when we enter something on the right, it is going to be different than the entry on the left. Now, I'm not talking about like alignments, okay? I'm just talking about the dynamics of the actual entry. And so, if you are working on handstand, Panchavirasana, headstand, from a non-symmetrical entry, my recommendation is figure it out on one side. Now, maybe that means if you really want to work the other side, maybe it means that 9 times you practice on the right and 1 time you practice on the left. But once you nail it on the right, you absolutely 100% unequivocally need to start practicing on the left as well to even things out. Again, guys, if you have questions about anything, it doesn't have to be about what I'm talking about at the moment. If you have questions, I have answers. Please put them in the chat and I will address them directly. Okay, so now you have my answer on inversions. Now this is because it's such a super technical skill, and again, because of the flip proprioception and the inability to actually see where things are aligned, that I do recommend that you master one side first. However, for every other pose, there's probably an exception. Okay, probably not every other pose. For almost every other pose that is done in an upright fashion, head over feet, isn't it funny how they say head over heels? Like that's a weird thing. Like, oh, I fell at head over heels for him, but really your head is always over your heels? Shouldn't it be heels over head? Okay, that's just if you have a comment on that, feel free to put that in there. Again, guys, this is supposed to be Q&A, so ask me your questions. Okay, so going back to practicing right side, left side. If I am practicing anything that is an upright position, I 100% and unequivocally practice both sides. Now, do I practice both sides equally? Sort of not, but it's not what you're thinking. Here's the thing. If, let's say, it's really easy on my right, a good example would be Pashasana. It took me a few years of practicing to get this on the right, and then it took probably close to a year more, I don't even remember, 6 months, a year, whatever, to get it on the left, okay? So the tendency when something is super easy on one side, not super easy, when something is 100% manageable on one side, but really, really hard and seems impossible on the other side, the tendency for so many people is to just focus on the side that's strong and easy. Makes sense, right? Wrong. What is the point of practicing? The point of practicing is to get better, to improve. And if we spend our whole practice just focusing on what we can already do, it's not really serving us. So when I'm doing something, let's say, again, Pashasana, let's say I could do it on the right side, consistently, strongly, I'm not falling on my butt, none of those things, but my left side, not so much. Not so much meaning not at all. I'm probably going to practice twice as much on my left side to catch my left side up to the right. The opposite of what the ego prefers, which is to focus on the side that it already can do and then just sort of dabble on the other side. How do we make things even? We make things even by taking our weak side and lifting it up to meet our strong side. Now again, guys, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will address your questions directly and I will give you comprehensive responses. Okay, so going back to this side-to-side thing. So what do I do? Now let me just say that for teachers in specific, for yoga teachers, there is a strong tendency to always demonstrate on their strong side. Now, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like if you're gonna demonstrate in front of a class, you wanna look good, right? And so I'm not gonna be demonstrating on my weak side and like falling all over the place, right? I'm gonna just keep going on the right side. Now let's say that I'm doing a pose that involves, say, standing on one leg, whatever, half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. And I'm teaching 5 classes that day, and I always demonstrate on the right leg. Well, what's gonna happen? My right leg is gonna get really strong. My balance on the right leg is gonna get really strong. And my left leg is gonna get more and more uncomfortable because it's simply not progressing the way the other leg is. And so for those of you who are teachers, I do recommend demonstrating on both sides and being like, okay, well, here's my strong side and here's my weaker side, because also there's something to be said for showing your weaker side, not just because it's like vulnerable or it involves letting go of your ego, but also because as a teacher, when you start demonstrating on your weaker side, you can feel what your students are feeling and address directly the imbalances that might be coming up for them. It actually becomes a tool. Because for me, when I'm teaching, like that's pretty much like my whole like secret for getting people into poses they never thought they could get into, and explaining it in really small pieces. Is that I do it, and as I'm doing it, I'm feeling it. As I'm feeling it, I'm thinking it. And as I'm thinking it, I'm saying it. So in that process of dealing with both my strong side and my weaker side, I can better explain to my students exactly what they need to know to master a pose. So here's the thing. As I said before, we are all very asymmetrical beings. And so it's very, very normal that you could do certain things on one side and not on the other. People always ask me this. What's wrong with me? How come I can like do it so easily on the right and not on the left? Or is there something wrong with me? Am I the only one who could only do this on the right and not on the left? And the answer either way is it is normal. It is normal. Oh, and by the way, we're human. There's that. So human beings, we're perfect. Some things are going to be easy and some things are going to be hard. Guys, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I know I keep saying that, but I know people are sort of coming on and coming off, and I do want to address your questions while I'm here. Now, how do I take a pose that I have figured out on the right, say, and master it on the left? Okay, because I actually do have a very specific strategy for this. So here's what I do. I take the side that is easy, okay, and I go into the pose in very, very slow motion. Now, what does that do for me? When I take the pose in very, very slow motion, I can pay better attention to my process. Now, when I take inventory of one of my processes, I am literally thinking about every single body part I have that is engaging. So I'll start always with the ground. You always want to start with whatever's on the ground. So right now, I'm talking about, let's say, Pashasana, okay? So the first thing I need to do is think about what is my foot positioning on the easy side and where is the weight distribution in it, okay? So remember that every pose always starts with the foundation. Just like a building. If you're building a building, it starts with the foundation. If you don't have a strong foundation, what happens to your building? Especially if you live here in LA, where we have earthquakes all the time, you're not going to have a building. Your building is literally going to collapse if you don't have a strong foundation. So it always helps if you work with order of operations. Start from the ground and work up. So again, in my Paschasana example, I'm going to come up with a checklist, and as I'm coming in, what position are my feet in and where is the weight distributed, okay? Then I need to make sure that I even have balance. So then I have to ask, how do I find the balance? Hi, Namrata. I'm going to come to your question in 1 second as soon as I finish this conversation about how I take something that I can nail on the right side and turn it to the left. And then I start working up and say, when I come into my twist, right, how far do I have to twist, right? What part of my arm is touching my leg? Where is it touching my leg? Where is it wrapping? And I literally take this inventory, checklist, checklist, checklist. And then once I have everything in order, I know it's replicable. And then I can do it on the other side. So that is the process to make sure that everything you could do on the right, you can do on the left, but you do have to be willing to work on some things that are hard for you. That's super important. Okay, Namrata, wow, 1 a.m. in India. Thank you so much for showing up. It's funny, I literally just before this just got off another call with somebody from India, and it was midnight there when we got off. So I give a lot of props to my Indian friends who do show up in the middle of the night. Okay, Namrata, I was wondering what your experience was with a TFCC wrist injury. I've been dealing with it for 8 months now. It's really slowed down my yoga progress. Namrata, I'm so sorry. Can you tell me what TFCC is? Sorry, now I'm showing my true colors. I have not seen that, but I can talk generally about wrist injuries because certainly I've had them. Let me talk about what I have dealt with my wrists. And those of you who have been following me long enough have actually seen me with a hand brace, okay? The hand brace that I use is actually called a thumb stabilizer. And if you email me, I can send you a link. I think I used the one from Futuro, and it is miraculous, like miraculous. But what it is, it goes around your hand, there's a wrap around the wrist, and then there's a wrap around the thumb, okay? Now, for me, I had what was called de Quervain's, and this is a wrist and thumb issue where basically I forget about holding a glass. I woke up one day, I couldn't hold a piece of paper. I mean, my hand was destroyed, as was my wrist. And I went to the doctor. For those of you who know my theory on injuries, I worked through everything. I didn't take any time off of my yoga, even though it hurt. And I could talk about that a little bit if you're interested. I think I talked about that in the last Q&A. Okay, I see what you're saying. Namrata, thank you for clarifying. So I went to a doctor and he said that this injury, de Quervain's, was going to take, it was wrist and thumb, 8 weeks to clear up. So let me just go on record as saying that when I put on this thumb stabilizer brace, it was like good as new. I could do anything with my hand. And honestly, I think it was about 2 to 3 days after that my hand was like basically better. So I'm actually, oddly enough, like a really big fan of putting on like these braces. I also have a discount for Copper Compression brand if you're interested. I used the knee sleeve also when I tore my meniscus, and it was unbelievable how much it helped. So let me, so one thing I do want to clarify, however, if you are doing, like, let's say a lot of arm balances and inversions, and so you start getting pains in your wrist, that's very normal, okay? When I started like really getting into my, I'm only laughing because my brain, when I really started doing like handstands and arm balances all the time, this was many years ago, I literally believed that I had a stress fracture. I told everybody I had a stress fracture, in fact, but I don't think I had a stress fracture. I don't think there was anything in there because I kept working on it, and it wasn't really getting worse per se, and a fracture would get worse. So here's the thing. We need to always differentiate between injury and discomfort, okay? So to me, an injury is like a tear or a break, right? Something that literally is going to require a specific healing modality. Discomfort is something that might feel like pain. It might even feel like sharp pain, but our bodies are not beholden to it. It's sort of a choice, whether we work through it or not, or where our particular edges are. I'm a big fan of finding your particular edge, okay? And pushing on it, but respecting it at the same time. So if you have a wrist injury, that means you went to the doctor, you got a diagnosis, then there's only so much you're gonna be able to do, okay? Unfortunately, but if it's just discomfort, you're saying you can't put pressure on your hands, what I would recommend is start like just practicing hands and knees, like you're gonna crawl, and see how long you could just stay there on your hands and your knees. And if that gets easy, take just one leg back. So you're sort of in like a half plank. And when that gets easy, you put 2 feet back. So you're in a full plank. And maybe you hold it for 1 second. Maybe you hold it for 2 seconds. Maybe you hold it for longer. But the thing is that if it's not, again, like a break or a tear, your body will adapt. I talk a lot about skill set and mindset, and I can't emphasize enough how much mindset plays a role in our personal recovery when it comes to injuries. I can tell you that, like right now, for example, I have some little tweak in like maybe my piriformis. It's hard for me to even fully delineate like where it is, because I think that there's some referred issues. I don't know. And you know, it's bad enough that like it could wake me up because I'm uncomfortable sleeping from it. So I need to use my mind to say, okay, well, I can still do, say, my back bends. I just need to be A, more mindful, and B, maybe not go as deep. But I'm gonna get a lot more out of working my edges than I am out of backing off completely. Now again, I think I talked about this last time. How did I learn this lesson? I learned this lesson because I literally tore my shoulder, my rotator cuff, a long time ago, maybe 15, 16 years ago. And I had to take, or I chose to take a year off of my practice to heal it and not have surgery. Did that work? Yes. Yes, it did. My shoulder basically, today, many years later, I'd say it's 95% better. But you will see when you watch my handstands that I do have some compensation, right, from that injury. But what happened from taking a year off was that when I hit the mat again, it was like starting from square one. It's like I had never practiced yoga before. So I sort of decided, like, next time I injure myself, I'm gonna work through the injury, which is what I did when I tore my meniscus. Again, the doctor's like, you need surgery. And I said, no, I don't. And I didn't miss a day of practice. Not just didn't miss a day, I did my full practice. There were a few poses I did have to adjust, but for the most part, I mean, I was just in it to win it. Like, if I couldn't bend my knee all the way, I bent my knee 90% or 70%, depending on the pose. But I kept working through it. Mindset is key. The other thing that I would say, Namrata, if you're interested, look up Wayne Dyer, okay? If you're not already familiar with him, Wayne Dyer has, all of his audiobooks are here for free on YouTube. They're really amazing. I've listened to every one of them 150,000 times. But he has one that is specifically about healing your body through your mind. And I have taken this so much to heart. If you Google Wayne Dyer self-healing, I assume that it will come up. So among other things, one time I wrote a blog post about this because I was in Costa Rica and we went for this really long horseback ride, trotting and doing all sorts of stuff. And I wound up with, like, I'd never had it before, sciatica. I literally could not sleep. I could not get comfortable sitting. I could not get comfortable lying down at all. Like, the only way that I could get any sort of comfort was walking around or working on back bends. Now, that's not super conducive to sleeping, let me say. So at night, for about 3 or 4 nights, my last 3 or 4 nights while I was there in Costa Rica, I was listening to Wayne Dyer, and his whole thing is just tell yourself that you're healthy, that you're strong, that you're okay. And it may seem ridiculous, but between listening to him and reprogramming my mind, keep in mind, I literally did not sleep for 3 or 4 days because I was in so much unrelenting pain. Unrelenting. And I couldn't practice while I was there. A combination of I didn't have a yoga mat and we had a very, very, very busy schedule while we were there. And so I literally, like, the day that we came home, I was getting home at like 6 in the morning, and I'm like, I know that when I hit my mat, when I just get on my mat, I'll be okay. And to be honest, I thought, okay, I could heal myself in 2 or 3 days. That's what I thought. But believe it or not, I got home that morning, I got on my mat, my mind was in healing mode. It wasn't in like, oh, I'm worried about this pain that's been keeping me up for days and days on end. And my practice was 100%. And the pain was gone completely. That day, that minute, I didn't have any more of this pain that was 24/7 for days. Now, I had set my mind on, like, okay, I'm gonna be 100% okay when I hit my mat. It's not that I wasn't trying to, like, heal myself in Costa Rica as well, but in the back of my mind, when you are working on changing your life through changing your mind, one thing that you have to sort of keep in mind is you gotta believe your own answer. if you just sit there and say, I'm fine, I don't hurt, I have no pain, you know, whatever, and you say it just for the sake of saying it, it's not going to make the difference. You have to be willing to believe it. So it's a combination of believing big things, such as I can heal myself, I can work through this injury, I am working through this injury, and having big goals that you can simultaneously aim for and believe in. Okay, well, thank you so much, Namrata, for your question. Keep in mind that if you join my Vimeo classes, I have 2 channels, okay? So I have my Always on Top channel, and that one is full-length classes, okay? I add 1 a month. It has everything from like 15, 20-minute classes through like 2 or more hour-long classes. It has beginning, intermediate, advanced, all levels. It's got varying levels of intensity, and those are classes of me demonstrating. Now, on top of that, I have my Yoga Superhero channel. That's my premium channel where I have free Q&A every month. Okay, normally this isn't free. I'm doing it now for free. And it has all my workshops and master classes, such as how to press from firefly to handstand, or how to hold a handstand for more than a minute. And it also has classes with student models. So you can see what the classes look like with students who maybe, how do I put it, are a little more realistic in their practice than maybe watching me, because I already know the poses or have already, for lack of a better term, mastered the poses. So also keep in mind, guys, that if you sign up for my Vimeo channels, and the links for that are in almost all my videos, maybe in all of my videos, you can get 50% off if you buy a year in advance, if you just contact me directly, and I'll hook you up with a 50% off annual pass. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, online or offline, which do I personally enjoy? What does that mean? So the question says online or offline, which do I personally enjoy do you mean as a teacher, as a practitioner? I'm not sure what that means. So, I mean, as a teacher, I love both. I love both. I love teaching in person, of course. Yeah, okay. It's funny you should ask that, because that's actually the other thing I wanted to talk about today. As a teacher, I'm not gonna lie, it's nice to like be in a room with someone and share the energy with someone. But I have to say that teaching on, say, Zoom, gives me the opportunity to work with people who are not in Los Angeles. And some of my favorite students are not in Los Angeles. And so I honestly enjoy both. I enjoy teaching online and offline, live. Now, if the question is, do I prefer teaching online live, like a Zoom class, like a one-on-one class, versus online, like a pre-recorded class, like Vimeo, I would say I absolutely prefer in person over Vimeo for sure. It's personal, you know? So when I'm just shooting a video, it's just me in a room by myself talking to a camera. And, you know, when I'm working one-on-one with people on Zoom, then there's interactivity and a human being on the other side. Now, that being said, a lot of people tell me, you're so welcome, that they prefer like in-person classes versus Zoom classes, because they don't think that Zoom classes are as effective. Now, again, going back to my original thing of it is nice. It is nice to like be in a room with somebody, but I'm going to argue a few things about this. Do Zoom classes work versus in-person classes? First thing I want to say is that my Zoom students progress in their practice 100% as much as my in-person students. There is no differential between the progress of my Zoom and my in-person privates. The only exception to that is the very, very, very few people who need a physical spot, someone to hold them to take them into a handstand. Like they can't kick up to a wall. That is literally the only exception to the rule. I'm sorry, not just handstand, inversions. And by the way, people who can't get to a wall in an inversion, now I'm talking about handstand, Pinchamayurasana, almost invariably, I'm talking about going to the wall. I'm not talking about balancing in the middle of the room. If they don't have any like physical injury that would preclude them from doing it, it's almost always mindset. Almost always. So let me just go on record as saying that. But going back to my original thing, my Zoom students progress as much as my in-person students. Why? People love to be touched, right? They love, we all love to be touched, but people love to be touched by their yoga instructors, right? They want to be adjusted. They want, to learn like, oh, your hand goes here, blah, blah, blah. So I understand that. However, when someone is physically adjusting you, okay, they are using their hands to teach your body to do what it should be doing on its own, okay? When somebody is adjusting you, they are taking away your learning process of teaching your own body how to succeed in a yoga pose. Now here's the thing, when I first started teaching, and when I say first started teaching, I'm talking about for a long time, like probably a decade. My hands were always on someone, always. Like it was like a thing with me, like I always needed to be adjusting someone. In my head, it showed that I was a good or advanced teacher, or that I was somehow like extra helping my students. But the truth is, the only way that doing manual adjustments on people is helping them is the same way as like a block if they can't reach the floor, or a strap if they can't get a flip grip is going to help them, which is to say props, whether it's a teacher, a wall, a block, a strap, are something that we're trying to get rid of, not rely on. It's just like when we have crutches, when we break our ankle. We don't want crutches forever. We want to heal so we can move past the crutches. So here's the thing, why do I say that 10 years ago my hands were always on my students? I've been teaching now for 22 years, just FYI. I started teaching in March of 2002, so I'm closing in on 22 years in about a month. It took a lot of maturity as a teacher for me to get to the point where I couldn't teach without touching anyone. Why is that a sign of a mature teacher? Because in order to be able to teach without touching, you need to be able to articulate your thoughts. And in order to be able to articulate your thoughts, you gotta know your stuff. I can't tell you how to adjust your body unless I know how to adjust your body. Okay? Now, when I say that, I mean I need to know how to adjust my body. So, to this extent, wherein you think that having a teacher in the room with you, touching you, is helping you, a lot of times it's actually holding you back because you are no longer doing your own work. And so that's my first thing, is that when I'm working with somebody, it doesn't matter at all if they're online or offline. I'm doing the same thing with them. Now, the second thing that you need to look for in a teacher, I would say even more if you're working on Zoom than in person, is that they need to be able to teach without demonstrating. Now, sometimes you need to demonstrate. Like if it's a complex pose, it sure pays to demonstrate. But what happens is there are a lot of teachers who actually do the whole practice with their students, and in so doing, they actually wind up ignoring their students. They're so focused on their own process, they're not looking at their students to see if they're doing things in a way that might hurt them or that might be out of whack, right? And so if you have, let's say, a Zoom teacher who is watching you, but say sitting here watching you and giving you direct feedback, I will argue 100 times out of 100 that that's going to be a more valuable experience than having someone in the room with you who is demonstrating and not paying attention to you at all. Like, how is that serving you? How is that serving anyone, really? So the other thing is that I really want to point out, because here we are on YouTube. I can't tell you how much I love YouTube. I watch YouTube like 24 hours a day, or listen to it. I listen to Wayne Dyer while I sleep. I listen to self-empowerment. I get the news channels. I love YouTube. But you are on YouTube right now for yoga instruction. And if you want to ask me, do Zoom classes work? Are they as effective as in-person classes? Well, I think the answer is in the question, because if you don't believe that online classes work, why do you watch yoga on YouTube or on Vimeo or whatever other platform you're watching it on? Because the answer is that if you have the right teacher, it doesn't matter if they are on a screen or if they are in the room with you. I'll tell you, a lot of my students, my handstand students, again, like all rules are broken with handstands. There's a lot of demonstration that goes on with my handstands. But also I'm spending most of the time watching them and giving them direct feedback. But a lot of my students, quite frankly, they might be doing yoga on their phones, which means they're like back there. I'm, on the phone. They can't even see me. And they're still getting amazing results. So here's the thing, guys. There are actually like a lot of ways to practice with me directly if you want to, okay? Obviously, there's YouTube, okay? We're on YouTube now. I post shorts every day, and I post longs about every 2 to 3 weeks. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you love shorts, I love shorts. We all love shorts. Shorts are fun. They're cool. And they're short. But don't rely on shorts for learning the technical aspects of yoga, okay? Because shorts are just like an appetizer to a meal. Now you'll see that in almost every one of my shorts, I'm gonna have a reference to a long form video that gives all of the information of how the process actually works. My three shorts that are doing really well right now. One is how to drop back and stand up. And the other two are splits. One is like Hanumanasana, forward back splits, and one is straddle splits. And all three of these are doing really, really well. However, they are just like the scratch of the surface, like a little, like when you go to the movies and they have previews of the full length instruction. The reason why I encourage you to get the full length instruction, guys, on everything is because if you're just going on shorts, you're missing a lot of the details. And it's like the difference between a 3-year-old copying a pose and a 30-year-old. A 30-year-old can take like the technicalities and make sure that everything is in alignment. A 3-year-old is just going to sort of go through the motions. So YouTube with me is where you're gonna get pose instruction. Now, if you want full length classes, and that's where the magic happens, guys, and I 100% guarantee that if you practice regularly with my full length classes, you will level up, period. And you can get those classes on my Vimeo channels. Again, I have my Always on Tap, which has about 120 classes right now. I add one a month, and they are each completely unique. What I find with most of the teachers on YouTube that are posting free classes, they just keep regurgitating the same 3, 5, 10 poses over and over and over again and just give it a different name. All of my classes are different. And then again, I have my premium channel, my Yoga Superhero channel, where I have all my great workshops and master classes for people who are really, really looking to level up, plus free Q&As and student model classes. So those are over on my Vimeo channel. I am not a big fan of just practicing poses without having a full yoga practice, because that's not really yoga anymore. That's just sort of like gymnastics or contortions or circus. And if that's your only goal, is to look good on Instagram, then my poses here on YouTube and instruction here on YouTube will be 100% sufficient. But if you have any real yoga goals, like real life yoga goals, I really highly recommend that you go over to my Vimeo. Now, another way that you can practice with me, of course, is going to be through private classes. In fact, I don't teach public classes. I only teach privately, and this is either on Zoom, as I've already explained, or it can also be in person if you happen to live in Los Angeles. If you don't live in Los Angeles, I also travel to do workshops. If you either have a studio or know somebody who has a studio that would want like a weekend of intensive workshops. And just because I'm not getting the questions, I'm just going to keep talking for a few more minutes. If you have questions, please put them in the comments before the live ends so that I can make sure to address them. The last way, unless I'm forgetting, I've got 2 other ways. I've got my Patreon channel if you want something that is a lot lower commitment than the Vimeo. Is just a few bucks a month. There are different levels there. You could find me on Patreon at YOGAthletica, or I think it's called Shana with YOGAthletica. And there are links here on my YouTube description to my Patreon. I always appreciate your patronage, and especially if you feel like you learn a lot from me. a few bucks goes a really long way, and I appreciate it. But the last thing, and I know I talked about this when we first started today as well, but if you want to not just change your yoga, not just master your handstands, but honestly and truly, if you are committed to changing your whole life, you might want to consider, you definitely want to consider my Handstand Breakthrough Revolution. This is an 8-week course that is a combination of physical skill set and mental mindset to not only master your handstands so that you're balancing consistently and fearlessly in the middle of the room, but also we work on your life goals. And so it's a combination of personal coaching and yoga instruction in the HBR. Now, for that program, I'll also put a link in the description. You can set up with me a free breakthrough session where I will get on the phone with you. Well, not the phone, Zoom. So it's like in person, one-on-one, to look at your handstand, see where you are, talk to you about your self-limiting beliefs that might be holding you back. And if you don't know what those beliefs are, I'm happy to explore them with you. I know a lot of people think, oh no, I don't have any self-limiting beliefs. I don't have any problems in my life. I'm completely happy. I am lying to myself. Guys, find me a person without a problem and I will make them a gazillionaire tomorrow because they can share with every single other human being on earth, from Tony Robbins to the President of the United States to me. We all have problems. We all have challenges, exactly. And we need to learn to get real with ourselves. We need to learn to get honest with ourselves. We need to be willing to look deep into ourselves if we ever want to live our dreams and achieve our biggest goals. That is why, like, my Handstand Breakthrough Revolution is about breakthroughs and it's a revolution. Because yes, people are walking out of it on their hands. They are mastering their handstands, and you can see 3 recent testimonials here on my YouTube. But even more, my grads are talking about mindset, mindset, mindset. It affects their careers. It affects their relationships. It affects their health. And so what is it in your life that is stuck? I don't have a perfect life. You don't have a perfect life. If you find it confrontational that I would say that, or upsetting that I would say that, keep in mind, nobody in the history of the universe has ever had a perfect life. It's unlikely that you or I will be the first one. So, with excuse me, with a combination of my yoga teaching, yoga philosophy, and personal coaching, I can help you, I promise, to become like the biggest, baddest version of yourself. I'm gonna just hold on for 1 or 2 more minutes to see if anybody has any yoga questions that I can answer for you. Otherwise, I will sign off. What about headstands? I'm not. Hey, keep looking up. Boy, that's a loaded question. So what about headstands? I'm not strong enough for handstands. So I'm gonna say, first of all, the answer's in the question. You need to get rid of the dialogue about you're not strong enough for handstands, okay? If you have arms, and if you don't, please forgive me. In fact, just as a caveat to that, I've had 2 handstand students, not one, but 2, who were each missing a hand, and they could still do handstand. So we need to get rid of the self-limiting beliefs of what we can and cannot do. Because the answer is, if anyone can do it, it means it's possible. And if it's possible, there's no reason it's not possible for you. I don't even have to know you. I don't have to see your practice. I don't have to know anything, but you have got to get your mind and your body on the same page. Now, that being said, HBR, the Handstand Breakthrough Revolution, is about handstands. However, do I teach headstands? 100%, of course, and absolutely. That is something that either A, you could go to my headstand playlist here on YouTube. I also have a 7 days to headstand playlist, and I have headstand classes on my Vimeo as well. That really like builds you up to headstands. In fact, I have a new headstand program that is posting next Monday on my Vimeo, but that's going to be for advanced headstanders. And again, just like everything else, I can work with you privately, either live here in LA or on Zoom to get you into headstands. Okay, now, I had a long conversation with somebody the other day about my Handstand Breakthrough Revolution, and she kept asking, well, why isn't it headstands too? She just kept asking the same question, and I'm like, well, first of all, it's because it's a handstand program. I mean, why aren't I teaching whatever, Warrior 2? It's because it's a handstand program. It's inaccurate to believe that all inversions are the same, okay? What do inversions have in common? They're upside down. Are the general dynamics the same? On the broadest scale, yes, they need to align to balance. But keep in mind, a headstand, okay, a headstand has 3 points of balance. Your head and either both of your elbows or both of your hands, depending on whether you're doing Shirshasana A, right, where it would be elbows and head, or Shirshasana B, tripod, where it would be head and hands. 3 is a pretty stable structure. Pincha Mayurasana, people always tell me, oh, I can do Pincha Mayurasana, no problem, but I can't do handstand. Why? Well, Pincha Mayurasana, done classically, is this position. That's a square. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. How many points are in a handstand? 2. Right? I mean, that's simple math. Now, why am I pointing this out? If I were to say to you, I don't care how many pieces of furniture you've built in your life, but if I say to you, hey, could you build me a table? Are you going to do it with 2 legs, 3 legs, or 4 legs? Which one will be the most stable? Okay? 4 legs will be the most stable, followed by 3, and good luck finding a 2-legged table unless it's literally leaning up against a wall. So wherein going upside down in headstand, say, is going to teach you things about like proprioception, and where generic balance comes from upside down, it's a very, very different dynamic than a handstand. So again, I've got tons of headstand resources here on YouTube. I have them on my Vimeo channel, and I work privately with people on headstands. However, HBR, the Handstand Breakthrough Revolution, really is a handstand program. For anyone who is interested, again, I'll put a link in the description, and hopefully you can join me for that. It's a life-changing experience, I promise. Okay, any other questions before we sign off for the day? Anything about any pose, generally or specifically? Going once. Going twice. Ah, hey, Romy. Hello, teacher. I have been told that I have a banana back. Not sure how this banana back can be a cane back. I'm not sure what that means. What's a cane back? Guys, I just do want to say that I'm very classically trained, so I don't use a lot of like the vernacular that is used like in more casual yoga circles. So a lot of times if you say cane as in sugar cane straight back, okay. So a sugar cane pose is actually a back bend rather than a straight back, but but you're talking about, okay, just literally like sugar cane, not the pose. So you're talking about like a neutral spine versus a banana back. Now, this is going to depend. Are you talking about in inversions or are you talking about in life? Because that's going to be different. Now, here's the thing. If you're finding that a banana back, usually I think people are referring to the spinal extension, right? Spinal extension is a fancy word for saying back bend. What happens is, if someone is accusing, in handstands, thank you. If someone is accusing you, or not really accusing isn't the best word, of having a banana back, what is, I'm gonna ask you a question, I'm gonna wait a minute to see if anyone knows the answer, but what is on your body the back of your back? Does that make sense? What is the back side of your back? Like, what's the opposite of your back? Do you know? I'll give you a hint if you've been following me for a while. I always say, no matter what the question, the answer is core. Core. That's right. Core is the answer. So that's also the answer to if you are hyperextending in your spine, and usually banana, when people say things like banana back, they're talking about like a big like overextension, not just that you're back bending, but that you're, what I would say, dumping into. And keep in mind also that when we're working in spinal extension, again, that's a fancy word for back bend. In yoga, we're talking about our thoracic spine, okay? That means your mid-back, the parts of your spine that are connected to your rib cage. We are not talking about the lumbar spine, the low back, okay? The low back is where we tend to dump, meaning just sort of sticking out and not engaging those low back muscles. So if you want to get rid of that banana, the answer is core. Check out my secret to all of yoga video, because that really gets into it. And of course, my handstand break the revolution goes very deep into this concept, because it is a problem that a lot of people have. Among other things, core engagement is difficult for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. Okay, it's not as simple as like, oh, engage your biceps. Okay, I know how to engage my biceps. Engage your triceps. I know how to do that. Engage your core. All of a sudden people are like, what? I have no idea how to engage my core. Then in handstands, or any inversion really, I want you to not only engage it, but engage it upside down where your proprioception is all over the place. And so it creates this whole new set of challenges of engaging the core. But it is the answer. If somebody is telling you that you have banana back, what they're really telling you is you're not sufficiently engaging your core. So make sure you have that rib cage to pelvis connection and that you're not just dumping into your low back. And that will help to give you some of the support that you need to master your handstands. I hope that helps. Does that help? If you have a further question about that, please let me know. And if anybody else has any other questions, please let me know. One other thing I do want to say, by the way, about core is that in our backs is that think about all the people in your life who tell you they have back problems. I mean, every single person in your life who tells you they have back problems. Where are their back problems? I can 99% guarantee that they're talking about their lumbar spine. They are not talking about their thoracic spine, their mid-back. They're not talking about their upper back. People, when they have back problems, it's almost invariably in their low back, in their lumbar spine. Why am I pointing that out? It's because they are not engaging their core. Now, I'm not just talking about engaging their core while they're practicing yoga. I'm talking about engaging their core in real life. Because most people are only practicing yoga between 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours a day. What about the other like 21, 22, 23 hours a day? What's going on with your core then? So that's why core is so important. Also on my Vimeo channel, I have full-length classes that are dedicated exclusively to mastering your core engagement and building that strength. So I hope that helps. Does anybody else have any other questions that I can answer before signing off on this beautiful Monday in LA? Yes, it is winter here. It's about 78 degrees and it's sunny. That is why we pay the big bucks. I love LA. Let me just go on record as saying that. And I love you guys too. Does anybody have any other questions? Here we go. Going once. Going twice for those of you who may not type really fast. Okay, folks. Thank you so much for showing up today. As you know, if you comment on any of my videos, I will always reply to you. So please stay in touch. Please consider joining my Vimeo channels, my Patreon, or if you really want to level up your entire life, consider my Handstand Breakthrough Revolution. Okay, folks. Have an awesome day, and I will see you soon. Ciao. Oh, I mean namaste. I meant namaste. Have a great day.